Hi, Kurt.
Welcome to the Herbie Awards, presented by AT&T. Here are your hosts, Reese Davis and Kurt Herbstreit.
You know, this time of year, it's always really fun to do the Herbie Awards show. I think, though, that we probably have our coolest settings for any of the years that we've done the show.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it just, each year we just a little bit. We don't want to get drastic. What, 18 years now? This is about where we...
More or less. We think, we keep trying to count. We're not really sure.
I think it's 18. Sounds good.
He is the man for whom the awards are named, Kirk Herbstreit, alongside I am merely Reese Davis. This is a hardware. We found it really works better in this show if we move fast and give out a bunch of awards.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and start with the nominees for the Offensive Player of the Year for the Herbies, and we'll start with a bunch of quarterbacks.
Yeah, how about the year Dwayne Haskins had? You know, Urban Meyer in this offense with Ryan Day found a way to throw the ball. You know, usually you think of J.T. Barrett and their running game. This year, completely different style. And boy, Dwayne Haskins, a monster year with some outstanding wide receivers. Congratulations to Dwayne and that offensive team this year for the Buckeyes. Kyler Murray. I mean, you're right. You go from one quarterback to the next to the next. Just when Baker Mayfield left, we thought, okay, Lincoln Riley, let's see how he does with Kyler Murray, the transfer from A&M. I mean, if there's a way to get better, Kyler Murray got better from where OU was last year with Baker Mayfield. Unbelievable, and they're off to the playoffs. How about Tua? Tua had an ability to make plays early in the year, and of course, we kind of anticipated that because of the way he played in the national championship to win that title, but I think he just raised the bar, even from where our unrealistic expectations were to have a monster year in 2018.
The Herbie Award for Offensive Player of the Year goes to Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa.
Man, so good, he's known by one name, just simply Tua. Thrown for more than 3,300 yards and an Alabama record 37 touchdown passes. They head into the playoffs. Played on a bad wheel for really the whole second half of the season. But he really transformed and revolutionized the Alabama offense and made it more powerful than any offensive attack in the Saban era.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Mike Locksley stepped in. Mm-hmm. Brian Dable went off to the NFL. And like I said, I think a lot of expectations as far as what we thought he might be capable of doing. But I think that he was a beneficiary of having probably the best group of wide receivers that Nick Saban's ever had since he's been in Tuscaloosa. 3 or 4 NFL backs behind him, veteran offensive line. And then what they needed was a distributor. And he would be the first one to tell you that it was an embarrassment of riches. And they figured out ways to attack running the ball, throwing the ball. A lot of times, first 6, 7 games, he wasn't even playing in the third quarter because they were up so big. So ridiculous year, and he stayed humble throughout it all, which was great to see.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We talk about him not playing in the fourth quarter very much, very few pass attempts in the fourth quarter. He didn't play in the third quarter very much either for much of the year, and called himself a kid in the candy store, reach over here and get a Snickers, over there and get a Skittle with all of that. But now, head-to-head in the Capital One Orange Bowl in the college football playoff with Kyler Murray. I mean,
and as we sit here right now, you know, depending on when you're watching this, as we're sitting here right now, they have a very good chance to finish 1 and 2 in the Heisman race. Mm-hmm. And I made the point when we found out that these two teams would be playing each other that through the history, at least in the last 25 years, when you see two guys finish 1 and 2, how whoever wins it, it's a great night, great honor, great celebration forever. You're remembered as a Heisman Trophy winner. But for the game that the two teams end up playing, the defense from the quarterback that ends up losing, incredibly motivated to go out and avenge that night's loss as far as the Heisman Trophy. So I don't know if you want to win the Heisman Trophy or motivate your own defense to try to get them ready for that matchup.
You told a great story, I think, on Selection Day. Oklahoma and Florida State when Josh Heupel didn't win the Heisman Trophy.
Torrance Marshall, who's a starting middle linebacker and an intimidating middle linebacker, when they went out for the coin toss with Florida State and Oklahoma, he was, of course, the Oklahoma linebacker. His quarterback, Josh Heupel, lost. Chris Weinke won. The coin toss goes up. Shake hands. As he shakes Chris Weinke's hands, he says, "I'm here to get my boy's trophy back tonight." Chris Weinke was like, "Uh-oh." And, of course, Oklahoma went on to dominate and win that game.
Yeah, in fact, Florida State that night with the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, the offense put a 0 on the board. They got a deuce. They got a safety.
Take your 2
that
points.
Was it. Take your 2 points. You get to keep the trophy. You lose the big trophy.
Exactly.
You know, but still, I don't know. I know it's a different era of ball that maybe offense can win championships, but it's nice to have elite defensive talent, too. How about the nominees for the Defensive Player of the Year for the Herbies?
Well, again, 3 outstanding nominees here. Farrell from Clemson. We always talk about that Clemson D-line, and they're all great. But Farrell, because of the pass rush ability, consistently like this, getting to the quarterback on 3rd down, which will be a big factor, I think, in his bowl game against Notre Dame and being able to get after Ian Book. But a phenomenal year by that entire group, but Farrell, to me, stands out. Jeffrey Simmons, just a monster. What I loved about Simmons this year was he was just as disruptive against the run as he was getting after the quarterback and affecting the quarterback. Not always a ton of sacks, but it had, I think, a presence about him, and teams had to double team him often, which allowed that defensive line to have big years. And Devin White, there's always a linebacker in the SEC that seems to stand out by the end of the year, and seeing that guy, Roquan Smith was that guy last year at Georgia, and this year Devin White, leading once again a dominant LSU defense, whether it's playing them at home or on the road. Number 40 always provided their leadership.
The Herbie Award for Defensive Player of the Year goes to LSU linebacker Devin White.
Officially 9.5 tackles per game, but some grading him, including those at Pro Football Focus, have him listed with a far greater number of solo tackles. However you score it, this dude, sideline to sideline, sticks his face in the fan, and rides his horse around campus at LSU.
Yeah, and Dave Aranda, he has a scheme where he really relies on that middle linebacker to be a not just a dominant player, but also a great communicator. He provided that.
Newcomer of the year, heading the list of freshman quarterbacks from Clemson.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, a true freshman. They put a lot on him this year, and he stepped up. I called a number of their games, and I continued to kind of tap Chris Fowler like, kid's a freshman. I mean, he's out there acting as if he's a junior or senior because of the way he responded. You and I had him early in the year against Texas A&M in front of that crowd. How about Rondale Moore? Unreal. I was fortunate to call his first game Labor Day night or that weekend when he had a chance to go up against Northwestern. Right away, it was just like, okay, this guy's different. Came in out of Trinity High School in Louisville and had a monster year, so explosive in space, and a guy that Purdue could really count on in what they were able to do this year. Tyler Wallace is a guy that it seemed like every single week he would make plays and find a way to get downfield. That offense, from about the 4th or 5th game of the year, became explosive. Really, it started in this Texas game, and he, number 2, was right in the middle of that, making play after play, especially, as I say, in the vertical pass game.
The Herbie Award for Newcomer of the Year goes to Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
One thing Lawrence did as a young quarterback with a huge arm is he took care of the ball. I mean, he had very few, what they call in some metrics, turnover-worthy plays. He threw for 24 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. He's a big play waiting to happen. As the season has gone along, he's been more comfortable running because he has great straight-line speed. Dabo will tell everybody that will listen that this guy can really run. So he is a guy who will, maybe not a dual threat, and I don't mean like a Kyler Murray, but he can extend plays. He can get first downs for you when they get ready to square off in the game against Notre Dame in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl.
And the thing that I think people forget, he's 6'6".
Yeah.
I mean, when people want to compare him to what a young Deshaun Watson was able to do, Deshaun Watson was in that 6'2", 6'3" range. Trevor Lawrence is 6'6", 215 pounds. And as good as he's been, wait till you see him in 2 years when he's a third-year junior, ability to make plays, throwing and running. But the thing I just continue to say is you can't look it up when you look at his stats. It's how he's played. His ability to recognize, process coverage, get the ball out accurately, and has become a leader. He's a quiet guy, and he should be as a freshman, especially with a bunch of veterans on that team. But I've been very impressed with just how he's carried himself and can't wait to watch him in the postseason.
Yeah, you referenced the game that we had, Texas A&M. Really, it was the only time all season that I don't know if he was totally rattled, but he was a little out of sorts. But it was, second week of the season.
Second week of the season at Kyle Field, and it was electric that day.
And they have a great defensive line.
Yeah.
By the way, but boy, he certainly got better and better and has emerged as the Clemson leader on offense. Hey, let's give some quick Herbie Awards. Best best offensive formation is Clemson.
Well, you think about these guys, both over 300 pounds. You imagine being a linebacker and looking at Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins coming downhill on you in a hurry. I mean, the big fella, Dexter Lawrence, he's sometimes they'll give him the ball just to keep him happy. And you can see, like I said, that linebacker backing out.
And Wilkins is not fair. He won the academic Heisman, the Campbell Award. He's athletic, he's smart, he's disruptive. He can do anything.
And by the way, it's an era of the spread formation. We go to the I formation at the goal line.
How about the catch of the year here?
Yeah, that was a big-time one. This kept Northwestern's hopes alive of getting to Indianapolis.
Oh, you got your old Bennett Skoranek there.
Skoranek. How about that? Somehow the ball did not hit the surface. And that was a big win late in the year, going to Kinnick, finding a way to win that football game.
I think it's those sticky gloves, too. And then he had sticky yards. How about the special teams play of the year?
Well, this game was still in question at this point. It's an 8-point game in the third quarter. Ohio State comes up with a huge block punt by the freshman Olave, who ended up scoring 2 touchdowns himself. You can see blocks it, and Ohio State picks it up, goes into the end zone. That was it. The game was over at that point in Columbus.
We're just getting started here on the Herbie Awards. Coming up, a Hokie heartbreaker.
And the Old Dominion Monarch football team has its biggest win ever.
The Herbie for Upset of the Year is next. Plus, find out which dynamic duo will take home the best tandem. AT&T.
Who better to give you the upset of the year than the king of the super dogs? The ones you don't see coming. How about the upset of the year, Herbie?
Well, Ohio State and Michigan, now that you forget, that was a big upset. Ohio State at home, been struggling for about 4 or 5 weeks. Michigan flying high, one of the best defenses, if not the top defense statistically in the country. And Ohio State had their way, could have continued to score if they wanted, ended up with 62. This is a shocker. Old Dominion against Virginia Tech. Look at the number next to Virginia Tech, 13. And that defense of Bud Foster, we'll just always expect them to play well, even if they're young. I don't care if they're young. You can't do this.
Old Dominion had gotten blown out by the Liberty. So now Purdue over Ohio State.
Purdue and Tyler Trent. What a big day. We started with game day there in Pullman that weekend, finished it, of course, in West Lafayette. And for Purdue, it was a great memory for the Buckeyes, of course. Probably ended up costing them getting a shot to the postseason.
The Herbie Award for Upset of the Year goes to Ohio State in their 62-39 win over rival Michigan.
From the moment this game kicked off, Ohio State looked like the better team. Then they had a couple of miscues, a mishap on kickoff return, and Michigan got back in it, and the Buckeyes just took it away with an emphatic exclamation.
And I think the thing about it is Don Brown's defense had just overwhelmed everybody with their pressure and man-to-man, and Dwayne Haskins had time to throw, which was key, and, of course, had a big day. Now they get another defense in Washington.
As we take a look at our Capital One Bowl Mania preview, Ohio State is on its way to Pasadena, where they will face the champions of the Pac-12, the Washington Huskies. And Washington has been offensively challenged all year. And I'm looking forward to the game, too. I'm not sure you can beat Ohio State just with defense. Ohio State's going to score points.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Jake Browning's going to have to play well. Yeah. For them to make this a competitive game, Myles Gaskin and their running game, they're going to have to be able to challenge Ohio State, because as good as Washington has been in the Pac-12, and their defense clearly led them to a championship, especially in the Pac-12 championship game, Reese is all over it. I think their offense is going to have to be able to put together a plan. Now, keep in mind, it's Chris Peterson. And when you give Chris Peterson time to get ready for a bowl game, expect the unexpected. There will be tricks. He will have a few plays and a few different formations to try to catch Ohio State off guard. But I think it's going to be one of those bowl games where you can't expect to win 17-13 and get out of there with a win.
Yeah, they won the Pac-12 championship game 10-3.
That ain't what a pick six.
Yeah, that's right. That is not happening against the Buckeyes.
Watch Urban Meyer last game. Never is coached in the Rose Bowl. You think he wants to go out losing that game?
Urban is brilliant in a number of areas, one of the greatest coaches of all time. But he is particularly good when he can manufacture any type of cause for his team.
He's got a big one here.
He's got a giant one in Pasadena. And the Pac-12 coming off that 1-8 bowl run last year. So it's a really important game. Tag team duos, the best tandems. How about the nominees?
Well, David Blau eventually won the starting job at Purdue as a quarterback, and he and Rondale Moore connected often. Every week, teams would try to find a way to take number 4 out, whether they left him man-to-man, played zone, bracketed him in double coverage, but Blau continued to find more, and they had a huge year. Buffalo, coming out of the MAC, Tyree Jackson, Anthony Johnson, it's the Bears team. These guys, early in the year, Bear told me about them, and I was watching them, and he was right. They went on to have a year that was just magical, and they, again, in that match, challenged everybody because they could hurt you in different ways with great speed and great accuracy with a quarterback. Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. Again, this is a guy that's known for being able to get behind coverage, but also he can catch that quick slant and take it to the house. But Kyler Murray kind of took the baton from Baker Mayfield, found out pretty quickly, when in doubt, find a way to get number 5 the football.
The Herbie Award for Best Tandem goes to Oklahoma's Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown.
Yards per catch, big time, because Hollywood Brown is a home run threat. Now the issue with him from this point forward is, will the foot be healthy enough for him, A, to play, and B, to be 100% when the Sooners take on Alabama in the Capital One Orange Bowl? They are the best tandem in the Herbie Awards, that pass-catch combo for Lincoln Riley team. How about the nominees for throwback player?
Well, Kekoa Nawahine had a great year for Boise State. This defense, every year, you can count on them being physical, and I don't care who they're playing. I know they play out in the Mountain West, but you know, last year in their bowl game against Oregon, just walked away from that game saying just another reminder that they play with a chip on their shoulder, and he definitely led the way. Christian Wilkins, it's so hard to pick different guys when it comes to this defensive line. We already talked about Farrell. Christian Wilkins was just kind of the spark plug of the defense and special teams, and sometimes in the goal line package on offense. Just a guy that you cannot help but appreciate his approach to the game. Not just the numbers, the raw numbers, but his approach and the mental confidence he plays with. And Quinnen Williams. Nick Saban told me at the spring game, everybody's talking about all these other guys. I'm telling you, 92 is going to have a big year. Guess what? Nick Saban knows his defensive personnel. He was exactly right.
The Herbie Award for Throwback Player of the Year goes to Alabama defensive lineman Quinnen Williams.
You often hear people about Alabama say, oh, they just replace him with another 5-star. This guy's a 3-star player from Birmingham suburbs who developed into being as dominant a defensive lineman as they've had.
And I think that's important to remember that, because you're right. He was a little bit on the back burner. He wasn't that 5-star that everybody could not wait to watch, and he had to earn his way, and he definitely has done that this year, not only winning this Herbie Award, but he's going to end up probably being a top 5 pick, and a guy that you have a special place in your heart for guys that came in undersized and had to develop, work their way, and eventually become the player that he was.
This is our PlayStation Player Index on Quinnen Williams, first team All-SEC, up for a number of awards, and of course, hoping to be part of another national championship team with Alabama.
And I think they've got their hands full. Kyler Murray has an ability to throw. They've struggled against the big play in the pass game, and that's something that Quinnen Williams and this Alabama defense better be ready for. They're near the bottom of the SEC and allowing pass plays of 20 yards or more. Here comes, if Brown's healthy, but here comes Kyler Murray, Lincoln Riley, who's very, very good at having an innovative approach to how to attack a defense. I personally see this game, if you're going to watch this Orange Bowl, I see this very similar to last year's Rose Bowl game, where Georgia and Oklahoma went back and forth and went into overtime, but it was a lot of points. I see this game in a very similar fashion. I think Alabama will struggle to slow down this Oklahoma offense.
You know, I think you're exactly right. And remember, Alabama's really best edge pass rushers hadn't played a snap this year, and Terrell Lewis. Yeah. And also you have Chris Allen, who was hurt. If Alabama doesn't plan to put 45 on the board, they might as well not even get on the plane. Right. I think you're spot on.
The big thing is Marquise Brown. Where is he? We just talked about how dynamic of a player he is. Obviously, it would help their cause if he's there, but they still have a lot of other weapons on the perimeter.
All right, let's look at some quick winners of this year's Herbie's Awards for the postseason. How about the best restaurant?
Well, Giuseppe's is a place in Columbus. You've been there. You and me and Bear, Rinaldi, Gino, we all
did some work.
We all did. We did some work, and really good people. Giuseppe himself, so we appreciate them every time we get into Columbus.
And you get to go across the street, right across the street to Grader's.
So
ice cream afterwards?
Yeah, you don't eat for 3 days before you go to Giuseppe's.
Oh, that the best restaurant. How about the best hotel?
Well, this is one where we got into Dallas, and this is kind of a throwback. The Adolphus Hotel is a nice spot. The first time I've actually stayed there was this past year. There's so many other hotels in the Dallas area.
Well, maybe someday I'll stay there. I think I was at one of the Motel 6 when we were in Dallas.
Oh, you're beautiful.
Coming up, a look inside the brightest coaching minds in the game.
Their mascot is just outstanding.
Yeah, I'd give a rat's ass about Twitter.
Which Prince of the Press Conference will win the Herbie for Quote of the Year next? AT&T.
Back for more on the 18th year of the Herbie Postseason Awards. More or less. We think it's 18, somewhere in there. You know, there's a lot of different definitions for Coach of the Year. You can look at an overachiever, a guy who lifted his team to the pinnacle of a championship. What about the nominees here for the Coach of the Year?
Yeah, and there's, of course, a lot of great candidates. And you're right, depending on how you want to define it. I define it like this. Pat Fitzgerald had a team. They lost to Michigan. They're 1-3. They're probably out of the mix as far as trying to get into the Big Ten championship race. They got right back into it. Won a lot of games down the stretch. He keeps his team positive no matter what happens. Just one of my favorite coaches really for the last 10 or 12 years in the sport. Glad to see get his team this year to Indianapolis. Brian Kelly always deals with stress and pressure. Redefined himself and his staff 2 years ago. They had a nice year last year. I think he continued. Ian Book, of course, that was a tough decision for him to make because of his respect for Wimbush, but it worked out for him, obviously, all the way to an undefeated season. And Mike Leach, for entertainment purposes, and also because they had a great year. If you go back to August and you think about who's the team to beat in the Pac-12, nobody, unless you're part of the Cougs, would have told you that Mike Leach and Washington State had a chance to have a magical year, and they went out and did it.
The Herbie Award for Coach of the Year goes to Notre Dame's Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly taking the Irish to the playoffs. Kirk, you mentioned how he reinvented himself, even started doing yoga a couple years ago. And man, has he ever gotten the Irish out of that downward dog pose and into full sun salutation? He might even do trees sometimes.
Good.
You like
I
that?
like that.
They're reaching for the sky now, but they may not be in downward dog, but they are an underdog, a decided one in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl against Clemson. Is that appropriate? Is that a double-digit dog?
You do yoga? You sound like a guy who's got the poses down.
There's a P90X3 30-minute day that is brutal. Yeah, because old man like me is kind of tight.
It's good for you the older you get. Yeah, I'm into it. I think that this is a matchup that gives Notre Dame, with the time off, to rest up, allow them to be able to really study Clemson. You know, when you first look at this game on paper, you think, okay, Clemson's just so athletic. They're so talented. The young quarterback's playing great. He's got so many weapons. It's going to be tough for Notre Dame. But this is a Notre Dame team that has a lot of veteran leadership, not just from the coaches, but from guys like Drew Tranquill, and you can find others on this team. So I think that they'll find a way to make this competitive, and it's going to come down to Ian Book and Dexter Williams. And if that combination that's led them all year, the last 8 or 9 games, whether or not they can make enough plays to stay up with Trevor Lawrence.
You know, Kelly reinvented himself. They wanted him out of Notre Dame at times. At times you might even feel like that he's a new man, but some guys were new men on the sideline. How about the Herbie Award for the best first-year head coach?
Yeah, and when they hired Herm Edwards, there were a lot of giggles, especially in social media, about what in the world, this guy hadn't been around the college football game in so long, and you know, the way he carries himself, some of his one-liners, people didn't know if it would resonate with the college kids. Clearly, it did, as they went on to have a 7-5 season, and they're headed to a bowl game. Josh Heupel, undefeated year last year. The story for many people in college football was UCF. Problem is, Scott Frost left to go back to his alma mater. Who's going to have the guts to replace him? Josh Heupel, the former Oklahoma Sooner quarterback, steps in, keeps them undefeated, back to a New Year's Six bowl game, and obviously dealt with that pressure very, very well. And Dan Mullen, you know, we were looking around to say who could have a year where he's going to one of these high-profile jobs that could maybe compete right away. Could it be Florida? Could it be Dan Mullen? Didn't necessarily inherit a quarterback or an offense that you would think would give him that chance, but yet he found a way to get to that New Year's Six bowl game.
The Herbie Award for First-Year Coach of the Year goes to Florida's Dan Mullen.
You know, Mullen did a lot of great things, but I think maybe the most impressive moment, you know, game day, I was sort of stirring the pot. They'll never, ever lose Kentucky. Then they do. A lot of coaches could have flipped out, started blaming the players. We're trying to get new guys in here. We don't have enough. Dan didn't do that. Instead, he took a 4-7 team. He remained calm. They beat us. It's okay. Or not okay. They beat us. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're not panicking here. We're building. And now here they are, 9 wins. Going to play in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl against Michigan.
I'm playing an angry Michigan team. Last time we saw Michigan, they were obviously giving up 62 points to Ohio State. So his offense will have their hands full. Clearly, Urban Meyer, who Dan Mullen used to work for, gave him basically the blueprint on how to attack this Don Brown defense, but I think it's a psychological game. I agree with you, everything that you're saying about Dan Mullen. This is a team that lost to Kentucky, and in Gainesville, when you lose to Kentucky, that's tough. He also went to Vanderbilt. His team was down early. He almost got into a fight with Derek Mason. I think he was trying to show...
He would have lost that fight, by the way.
He would have. But he was trying to show his team, who was down and kind of sleepwalking. This is a different era. This is a different time with me as your head coach. We're going to fight out of this. They came back to win. And there were a number of stories throughout the year where I think you could show that this is going to be a fun era to watch Dan Mullen. And you could, I mean, I know they've made a lot of changes in the SEC East, but for now, get ready for that Gator Bowl down in Jacksonville between Florida and Georgia to always be impactful to who's going to get to Atlanta.
You know, it seems as if Florida and Michigan play each other in a bowl game every other year. And last time it didn't go very well for the Gators. Mullen will try to turn that around, I guess, for Harbaugh. If you can't beat the master, maybe you can beat one of his disciples. Never able to take care of Urban Meyer. See if he can. Dan Mullen. You know, Mullen was on the show on College Game Day with us a couple of times, and he's terrific. He's a good guy with a quote. Here are the nominees for the quote of the year.
Criticism where? From where?
Outside. Noise.
From where?
Twitter, radio.
Yeah. Oh, I'd give a rat's ass about Twitter. It's a platform for people that are sitting home drawing an unemployment check, sitting in front of a keyboard.
Their mascot is just outstanding. I mean, them and Mike the Tiger are by far the best, Matt. I mean, Butch is a better person, a symbol, the whole thing. I'll go with that, okay? But as far as that Buffalo and Mike the Tiger, utterly outstanding. I don't know how good mountain lions do in captivity. I'm curious. You know, if they have just a good, happy life, like the Georgia Bulldog, where they get their own hotel room and eat like a king. Pretty cool to watch. You know, part petting zoo, part football. Although I don't know if Ralphie will let you pet him.
Back when I was a player, you know, they had kind of the big time bus, and then they had the Roy bus, the rest of y'all, and you know, it's kind of Alabama and then the rest of y'all. That's we're just glad to be on the Roy bus right now and to still have a chance.
The Herbie Award for Quote of the Year goes to Oklahoma State's Mike Gundy.
Mike Gundy, Quote of the Year. It's like Twitter.
That's all you need.
Made it. Made it.
Look at this. He got the hair going. By the way, did you see the lean on why he did that? He's funny, man. He and Mike Leach, it's almost like they're challenging each other every week to see who can do a little bit more.
I wish they would play. They should start a home and home series just for the news conferences, and maybe we add Gundy to the whole shallow musings thing. Would be good.
It would be good. They should at least play in a bowl game. You know, if it's a second-tier bowl game, just throw them together. Put them in there.
That would be great. Both those guys are not only great quotes, but have turned teams around from time to time. What about the nominees? Herbie Award for Turnaround of the Year.
Boy, how about the job Luke Fickell did in Cincinnati? Cincinnati Bearcats, you know, last year 3-9 in his first year. There wasn't a lot of hope this year that they would be able to turn it around. You can see the record 10-2. They went down to Orlando, where College Game Day went down there, and they were trying to dare to dream there, trying to shock the world and knock off UCF. It didn't work out that night, but they finished 10-2. Congrats to Luke Fickell. Georgia Southern 2-10 last year to a 9-3, 6-2 in conference play. It's a really good job by them, and again, you always expect them to have a competitive team. I was just impressed when I looked to see that they were 2-10 last year, and to be able to bounce back with a lot of those same players. And Syracuse with Dino Babers, they were 4-8 last year, and just a year where you'd like to forget, even though they had a big upset against Clemson, turned it around with a very experienced quarterback in Dungy, and had a great year, finishing 9-3.
The Herbie Award for Turnaround of the Year goes to the Cincinnati Bearcats.
And Cincinnati is deserving of this, Herbie. Luke Fickell did a terrific job. There's some questions about Luke after that one interim year at Ohio State, but he is doing an exceptional job with the Bearcats, who really could have been 11-1. They should have beaten Temple, and they're off to the Military Bowl to take on Virginia Tech. How about the nominees for team perseverance?
Well, these are teams that didn't necessarily have monster years, but faced some serious adversity. Miami of Ohio, an example, 0-3 at the beginning of the year, 3-6. Instead of giving up on the year, they kept fighting. Chuck Martin does a nice job to allow them to win their last 3 to finish 6-6 and be 2 of the best teams in the league in order to be able to win those last 3 games. Talked all year about Scott Frost going back to his alma mater, kept waiting and waiting for them to get their first win. They started the year 0-6. The fans kept coming. The players kept playing hard. Nebraska has a bright future, in my opinion, with Scott Frost as the head coach. And they didn't win a lot of games, but they showed a lot of promise, and they kept fighting every single week, which tells you how much they respect their head coach. How about Maryland? Tough story. Jordan McNair, of course, passes away over the summer. Their coach, DJ Durkin, suspended. Matt Canada steps in as the interim head coach. And all I know is every week I watch Maryland, every week they seem to compete and give every team that they played all that they had. Really a testament to the leadership of that team, the job that Matt Canada did.
The Herbie Award for Team Perseverance goes to the Maryland Terrapins.
Maryland did persevere, and what they need to do now is heal. And they've got the perfect guy in place in new coach Mike Locksley, who understands that area of the country and that university as well as anyone. He's the guy who will restore some credibility in the program and in the DMV. And, of course, he'll coach with Alabama as the offensive coordinator until the end of the playoffs. How about the nominees for the moment of the year?
A lot of great moments. College game day finally gets out to Pullman. Was that the greatest?
It was the best.
I mean, all the flags that we had. I mean, keep in mind, we're on the air live at 6 in the morning local time, and it was a sea of humanity as far as you could see. They were just so thrilled at game day after all the effort by Old Crimson. Great to see game day have an opportunity to get out to Pullman. That same day, by the way, we had a story with Tyler Trent, with Tom Rinaldi on game day. I actually flew from Pullman to West Lafayette to see Tyler Trent that night, and he watched his team upset Ohio State. So I was fortunate to be in both places that particular weekend, and that's why I think maybe I have them as 2 of the nominees for moment of the year. And how about UCF? College game day, another spot we've never been. UCF fired up to have us there, and they put on a show. We just talked about how Cincinnati tried to compete, but there was no slowing down the Knights in this day and this night. It was all UCF.
The Herbie Award for Moment of the Year goes to Purdue superfan Tyler Trent.
You know what's really cool about this moment of the year and our friend Tyler Trent is that this has extended beyond a single moment in a single day. This has touched so many people in the various different realms, even if they're not connected with Purdue in sports, that have reached out to Tyler and been inspired by him, and we certainly continue to wish him our best.
Still ahead, from the bench to the big stage, the Herbie for Performance of the Year is next.
Quarterback draw, Jalen Hurts. Touchdown! Last year it was Jalen hugging Tua. This year it's Tua hugging Jalen.
Plus, these guys get no respect. The Rodney Dangerfield Award is coming up.
Run, including the game winner. Jalen Hurts is storybook ending and a nominee for performance.
Yeah, how can you not have that on there? Kind of a Hollywood script and what he was able to do. You laid it out perfectly. Instead of Tua being the savior this time, when his team needed him, he didn't pout all year, waited quietly for his opportunity, and ends up delivering for Alabama to keep their hopes alive for a national championship. De'Aaron King against South Florida on October 27th. Look at the numbers, 419 passing. He also ran for 132 yards as USF had hopes of an undefeated season, but not that day. That is a dream day when you account for 7 touchdowns and end up scoring 57 points. What a day for the Houston Cougars. Jonathan Taylor, I remember watching this game. Just a physical runner, obviously. But in this game, it went back and forth. Two conflicting styles, went into overtime. In fact, 3 overtimes. And that's where Taylor took control of the game. Purdue knew that Taylor was going to get the ball. They had 9 or 10 guys at the line of scrimmage. They still could not stop the Badgers and the big fella Taylor from scoring.
The Herbie Award for Performance of the Year goes to Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts.
I think you win the Herbie for Performance of the Year when an Alabama quarterback actually had Auburn fans feeling good for him. It was,
yeah.
I mean, his performance late in the clutch was remarkable.
Yeah, and we've always seen him scramble and run. This time we saw him make great throws, tight windows, running and making throws. To me, that's what really made the day.
Well, Hurts is a warrior, but so too is Sam Ehlinger, a nominee for Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, the Ultimate Warrior is just a guy who played through pain. Ehlinger had shoulder pain in his throwing shoulder all year, most of the year, and he's a physical runner. You know, as we saw in the Big 12 championship game, kept dealing with that and kept playing through that pain to be a leader for a team that he grew up worshiping and waiting one day to be able to be the starting quarterback. Drew Tranquill. I did a number of games this year for Notre Dame. Seems like every time I had a Notre Dame game, 23 had a new injury. You know, he had an ankle, he had a wrist, he had a thumb. And yet, when they told him to just take some time off, he said, no way, I'm a captain. I came back this year for this opportunity to be undefeated in the playoff. I'm not going out, and he didn't. Raquel Armstead, who is a great back, but at times they would put him down as a defensive lineman to rush the quarterback. And again, another guy who dealt with a number of injuries this year, dealt with an ankle, but just would not come out and let his team down.
The Herbie Award for Ultimate Warrior goes to Notre Dame linebacker Drew Tranquill.
Herbie talks about the injuries. This is a guy who's overcome 2 ACL injuries, and he also won the Werfel Award for his work off the field. He has a program where he goes and shares his story of perseverance with kids in the South Bend area. He's been on mission trips. He epitomizes the very best of college athletes, and he is the winner of the Ultimate Warrior. How about Rodney Dangerfield's a comedian who used to say no respect for you young kids. How about the nominee?
Yeah, exactly. No respect. No respect. How about Darrell Henderson from Memphis? This team gets no respect, but I think their running back, who finished second in the nation in rushing, definitely doesn't get the respect that he deserves. He is very, very fast and does a nice job kind of offsetting what Brady White and the offense could do throwing the football. Dylan Mitchell, Oregon Ducks. Over 1,100 yards receiving. Oregon, you know, this is a team that I think is starting to pick up some momentum with recruiting, kind of new direction with Mario Cristobal. And we had him early in the year. Game day went out there, and you know, Dylan Mitchell to me is a guy that I think has a great future and really a guy that they can count on in the outside as far as making big plays. And Brock Purdy, the freshman for Iowa State, took over after a loss to TCU. They were sitting there staring a 1-3 year. He went on to finish 7-1 as a starter. Who knows, if he would have gotten in there a little earlier, maybe the Cyclones end up winning or at least getting to the Big 12 championship. But what a great leader and a great future for Purdy and Ames.
The Herbie for the Rodney Dangerfield Award goes to Iowa State quarterback Brock Purdy.
When Purdy played his final high school game, he had 0 Power 5 offers and 1 FBS offer. He was patient. Recruiting started to pick up. He ultimately got an offer from Alabama, and UCF was in late. But he waited, and man, oh man, what a recruiting find for Iowa State as they have their quarterback of the present and the future.
Still to come, the plays that made us say,
narrowly escape with a 27-23 win. Look at 5:43 remaining. It's a tight game, 14-12. Pitt has the lead in South Bend, and Ian Book to Miles Boykin, middle of October, keep Notre Dame's hopes of trying to remain unbeaten, keep them alive with that clutch throw, and the legacy of Ian Book really started to go to a different level after that clutch performance that day late in the game. This is a game that just went back and forth. Cornelius made so many good throws. That one, he has an open receiver, short arms it, throw it, open. If Oklahoma loses that game, they do not get to the playoffs. So that saved their season, a 48-47 rivalry win in November.
The Herbie Award for Play of the Year goes to Chase Bryce's 4th down conversion versus Syracuse.
This has sort of been the year of the backup quarterback, because as good as Trevor Lawrence has been, they might not be in the playoff if not for this. They could have gotten left down the stretch.
And remember, the year before, they went to the Carrier Dome and lost to Syracuse, and they had quarterback issues that night. And so Chase Bryce, not a lot of people outside of Clemson fans knew a whole lot about Chase Bryce, but I think that team came together when he made that play.
Nominees for the Cool Hand Luke Award, Jake Fromm's a picture of cool.
Cool Hand Luke is, game's on the line. You want to put a quarterback in the game and go 80 yards and try to win the game. Jake Fromm would be a guy that you would definitely want to take into consideration. To me, last 5 weeks from the LSU game on, he was performing and executing at a level that very few were in the country. Dwayne Haskins, we talked about him earlier. What a magical year. Broke almost every record, not just for Ohio State, but in the Big Ten as far as throwing the football. Really grew up, I think, late in the year. Started to make some moves as a leader, also running and making plays to help his team win. And Kyler Murray, again, another guy that we talked about a lot. What more can you say? He can throw it from the pocket. He can run. He can create. Keeps plays alive. Just one of those guys that when he's out there, the other 10 guys believe that number one will find a way to win the game.
The Herbie Award for Cool Hand Luke goes to Georgia's quarterback, Jake Fromm.
Around the country, you've seen quarterbacks being pushed by talented freshmen. It gets to them. Never got to Jake Fromm with Justin Fields. Even when they would stick him in the middle of drives, he just continued to maintain his composure.
I kind of call him an old soul. Just a guy that just seems like he doesn't get rattled by very much. And I think Jim Chaney deserves an assist here because of the way Jim Chaney prepares him to get him ready for every game that he plays.
He can probably eat 50 boiled eggs. That's a reference to the Cool Hand Luke movie. How about the best new trophy getting out there?
We'll give one to the Sun Belt, the championship belt here. We're always seeing belts, for the turnovers. Yeah. Here's one for the championship.
But the best post-game celebration, and let's see if all of these will catch on or not. Northern Illinois Sutton Smith.
Oh, wow. We saw this in the Fiesta Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah, we did with Ian Johnson.
After the Statue of Liberty.
He goes up there, wins it. She said, yes, that's such a dangerous thing. What if they say no?
What if she says no? Shut that down.
We do it after one. Say, no, I thought about it. Maybe not.
We're good.
Coming up, it's the moment you've been waiting for. Kirk is handing out the ultimate Herbie next. Mayhem Moment is brought to you by Allstate, reminding you that football season is mayhem.
A couple of big awards to give out, including the Game of the Year. Here are the nominees.
Yeah, late in the year, 7 overtimes between LSU and Texas A&M. LSU at one point thought the game was over, but A&M gets another chance. They keep scoring. 2-point conversions, ends up 74-72. Jimbo Fisher wins it in 7 overtimes. Just to last that long, this should be Game of the Year. Ohio State at Penn State, a top 10 matchup. Ohio State goes into the whiteout, primetime game, Beaver Stadium, always a tough place to play. And right there, Chase Young, late in the game, comes up with a big-time play. And Dwayne Haskins and the Buckeyes stay at number 4 as they knock off number 9, Penn State. And, of course, late in the year, how could you not have this one in? Alabama, number 1. Georgia, number 4. Georgia controlled much of this game. It looked like they may pull off the upset until Jalen Hurts came in, saved the day, kept Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide alive as far as trying to chase down yet another national championship.
The Herbie Award for Game of the Year goes to the SEC Championship.
The stat floating around in the 2 meetings the last 2 years, Alabama has led a grand total of, I think, 9 plays against Georgia, but they've led when it's counted at the end. And this time with Jalen Hurts, and it is a worthy winner of Game of the Year in a showdown between 2 giants that not only was the SEC championship game, but felt like a playoff game. Time now for the big award, the ultimate Herbie.
Yeah, these are the guys that get it done, not just on the field, but provide great leadership for their team, the intangibles. Ben Burr-Kirven, a middle linebacker for Washington. Huskies had a dominant defense. 25 was right in the middle of it. Always providing leadership, always making sure that defense is aligned right and doing the right things on and off the field. Damian Harris, another guy. You can think of all these Alabama playmakers, all these guys at receiver, offensive linemen, on the defense. But if you really get close to the team, you would see that Damian Harris, to me, kind of old reliable, is really a guy that provides that leadership and makes crucial plays week after week for the Alabama offense. And Mackenzie Milton, UCF, last year, magical year, undefeated. he's the quarterback. This year, of course, they kept it going. He was making the big plays, and I know he had that critical injury late in the year, but in my opinion, even though he's down, he still seems to provide such great leadership for UCF despite not being on the field.
The ultimate Herbie Award goes to Alabama running back Damian Harris.
Harris came back for his senior year. The numbers might not have been as huge as he would have wanted, but he shared the wealth. Unselfish guy. One of the reasons that he's the ultimate Herbie winner, his acceptance speech, Kirk.
Hey, Kirk. I just want to say thank you for giving me the award for the ultimate Herbie. Really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Wouldn't be able to do it without my teammates, my coaches. So very thankful, very blessed, and I appreciate you. Roll Tide.
I mean,
That's why, right?
That's why he's the ultimate Herbie right there.
How is it that another season, I know we've got the playoffs, how is it that another season, another year, the Herbie Awards is in the books? How's that possible?
I can't believe it. Was it 18 or 19? Is it?
I'm calling it 18-ish.
18-ish. Are we going to have a new this is a new trophy, I think, last year.
Was it?
Yeah.
A little known fact that just like the Notre Dame helmets, that a team of workers come in and actually paint these with gold flecks.
That's why
that might not be true, but it's sort of like 18 or 19.
That's good.
There might be gold in that helmet.
Yeah,
Who knows?
pretty soon. We're working towards it.
All right.